Hello, this is Gray Hughes of Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. If you could hit that like button right out of the gate, I would appreciate it. And then share the video and subscribe. It helps me out tremendously. Today's video is regarding the new information that was put out in the correction of errors made at the trial and submitted to Judge Gould for her reviewing. Now, we're going to be discussing in this video purely the surveillance camera footage that appears to show that Brad Weber's van drives by at 2:44 and 34 seconds and likely would have driven by the crime scene area at like 2:48-ish, 2:47, 2:48. And we're going to try to show if the information is consistent. Now, the camera footage itself shows that it's 12 hours off. Now, how do we know it's not 12 hours and 20 minutes? Or, so we're going to need somebody to come forward with the precise information. Now, I'm also going to take a look at the shadow placement because I have a program, 3D Studio Max, that has a feature where you can put the sun up in the sky, pick the date, time, year, the geo coordinates, and I have it all set up correctly, and it'll let you see where the shadows would be. And I took a Google Earth image, north-south oriented, put it into my program, set up the sunlight system. I used a rectangular cube as a vehicle and then a sphere representing a tree that is in the shot. All right. So let's take a look at the video right now. All right, now I actually changed the contrast quite a bit in this video so that you can see the van a little bit better. But notice the tree right there, see the shadow? And then the vehicles that are parked right here, the shadow. We're going to check and see if it's consistent with. You can't get down to the minute using the shadows, but you can see if it's consistent with being in the afternoon, etc. and being right around that same time. All right, so right now I zoom in and you'll be able to see the van driving by. And let's just pause the video right there and let's show you a picture of the van that the defense team put out there. So this is Brad Weber's vehicle right here. It's the van that you appear to see in this video. And the first segment here, I have it zoomed out a little bit further and it picks the vehicle driving up. And right now, when you see it in that shot right there, it's basically on the Weber driveway making its way to Kay Weber's home, but he also lives there too. Brad Weber is Kay Weber's son. And here is that same video again, 2:44 and 34 seconds. It comes by. I zoom in quite a bit more. And then I have the camera actually follow the van. You can definitely see it looks very similar to the van that the defense team put out. It looks just like Brad Weber's van. And then you'll see it driving in the background on the private drive. Okay, so now let's take a look at Google Earth. All right, so let's go up here in the air. Let me show you what I'm doing in Google Earth. I took the same piece of property, north-south oriented. So let's go on Google Earth. That was actually 3D Studio Max. This is Google Earth right here. There's the property that the camera was on, and I'm basing that off of what the defense team put out there. See, here is the map that they gave, and then here's the property that they circled. And that is this exact same piece of property. And you can see there's a vehicle parked on the property right in this image. And let's take a look at this again. And they go through various timing of the video, etc. But for this purpose, we just need to know where the shot was taken from, and that's exactly what this image shows us. So if we go to Google Earth, and we take a look at this image right here. There it is. And so that means the camera is facing in that direction. This is where the defense team once claimed it was Elvis Fields But, now that they've put out the Ron Logan information, what happened to all your Odinists? So you had Ron Logan and Odinists and all these people. I mean, make up your mind, for God's sakes. But anyways, the van is driving by right here at 2:44 and drives in that direction. And you see it from this camera. So now we're going to go back to my 3D Studio Max program. And you can see there is the house. And then I put a cube in here because it looks like in the image, when you actually open up this image and go back to the beginning, it kind of looks like the cars they've pulled in and they're sort of turned in a little bit. But either way, we're just using this to see if it's consistent with. So when you're looking at this, you see this tree and a shadow going off that direction, and then these cars are a little bit closer and the shadows still going off in that direction. So let's see what happens. Let's go to Google Earth here, and then 3D Studio Max. I keep saying Google Earth. And let's show you over here. So I've already changed it to 14, 44, and 34 seconds. And it's February 13th, 2017, and -5 time zone. Okay, and now we're going to look through the camera, and there's a vehicle, and there's where the tree is. And this is just going to be an estimate. So let's see what happens when we render the scene. This will give you the angle of the shadow. All right, so let's maybe try to get the camera up a little bit higher off the ground, just so we can see things better. How about like that? And then maybe we'll rotate it slightly. That's not going to work. I think we need to put it on. Go up here and just rotate it slightly down like that, just to see what the shadow looks like. All right, so we take a look at that. That looks pretty consistent. All right, so if you take a look at that, and you look at this image right here, see how the shadow goes off that direction and off to the right. So definitely, if you look at this program, it looks consistent that is around that time. Whether the camera's off by 20 minutes or not off at all, we don't know currently, but let's just take it at face value. I think it's very possible that the van is driving by at 2:44. So if the van is driving by at 2:44, it's going in this direction, and it's driving around, and then the van would drive by here probably at like 2:46, 2:47. And then it drives by here, probably 2:47, 2:48 still. And then from here, in a conversation I had with Robert Ives a long time ago, you can actually see from this private drive and the property up here, you can see right down into the crime scene. So it could have been at 2:44 when Richard Allen actually saw the van and got nervous and killed the girls and left. His story is that when he told Dr. Walla that he waited and watched the girls, followed them across the bridge, took the girl, ejected a bullet, took the girls down the hill, and then when he was down below, he was going to assault the girls. And then we know by the Apple Fitness that the step stopped at, I think it was 218 to 225. There's no movement. And that's the law enforcement theory was during that time was when he attempted to assault them. And then the van drove by, which would be right around 225. And he sees the van and he panics and he has the girls go across the creek. So I have it set up like this. Where they make it to this area, and then he takes 50 meters from 225 to 231, and then there's in the 231 minute, it goes up a floor. So that would make sense, climbing up the bank, and then the phone's right here at 232. So I guess it's still possible that maybe down here he tried to do something, took them across the creek. Maybe he thought it looked too open down here, and he took them across the creek. And then at 232, the phone was put on the ground as he was making them undress over here. And then, he was in the process of doing whatever he was doing, and then at 2:44 ish, 2:47, I guess, the van drives by. It might even be earlier than that, 2:46. The FBI data shows that at 2:50 his phone is pinging at his residence over here, or in that area. So, at that time, at 2:47 or so, let's say, Richard Allen sees the van. That's when he panics. Oh my God, they can see me from right up there. So he kills both the girls, and then he starts, trying to cover them with sticks, and then he leaves. Or he takes them across the creek and he kills them on the other side, and then he starts covering them up, and then a van drives by. Maybe on this side of the creek he took pictures and did something for 7 minutes, and then he took them over here because he couldn't risk having them live. And then when he was over here, he killed them, and then a van drove by and interrupted him in the middle of covering them with branches. And then he hung out at the crime scene for a while, perhaps. But we don't know what he was doing. If you believe Sarah Carbaugh, that she saw him at 3:57, then he still hung out around the crime scene for quite a while. Now, when he told Dr. Walla his story, was he being self-serving, for example? Was he trying to sort of downplay? He didn't want them to suffer, etc. Well, maybe there was a hell of a lot more going on than any of us actually realize. But he's just saying a story that sounded a little bit better, but also saying some truths. He's the only person that would have known that a van was driving by right around that time. Okay? Now, there's all kinds of different theories you can bring up there. I think it was a mistake, though. I think the defense should have used it, right? Aren't they derelict of duty by not using that to try to also sell that the story that he told Dr. Walla wasn't a truth as well? But they probably thought about it and went, well, it does also, he does mention the van, and the van is there during the crime scene, during the time of the crime. So they probably weighed that out and didn't want to bring that up. They also didn't want to bring it up because it interfered with their timeline. They were trying to suggest at trial that Brad Weber, perhaps, he had sticks in his garage. They were trying to get out there. He had sticks in his garage, and they were trying to make it seem like Brad Weber was driving by right when the girls went down the hill by some other person. That wasn't Richard Allen. It was somebody else. And he was driving by, and they must have got into his vehicle. But now we see that he's driving by at 2:44, so it ruined their shady timeline that they came up with. So, that's something people got to look at. Everybody acts like the defense is just, oh, woe is me, everybody, poor me. But why didn't they use that at trial to help sell the story that Richard Allen is telling stories that just aren't true? It's just because he's been tortured in prison. And the reason is because it talks about a van that only he would have known was there. And it looks like it was 2:44. So if, I guess now you can look at it differently. When Brad Weber gets off of work at 2:02, that's when he punches out. He maybe gets to his car at 2:05, 2:06. Something like that. Takes 28 minutes to drive home according to Google Maps. Let's say he wasn't going through the neighborhoods quickly, going 60 miles an hour. So now we're looking at something like 2:36 or so he'd get home. So, there's 8 minutes of missing time. Maybe he drove in, and maybe he did check out one of his machines for 8 minutes. Who the hell knows? But his vehicle is driving by, apparently, according to this, at 2:44. Now, can you prove that it's actually 2:44? Or do we just have to assume that it was just 12 hours off? That's the thing, is we don't know. Now, I guess what we can do is we can talk about the other issue as well, the Ron Logan information. Now, the thing is, regarding Ron Logan, is Ron Logan was he was a criminal, and he was on parole, and him driving a vehicle would put him back in prison. And so he told some falsehoods about how I think it was his cousin, or I can't remember who it was that drove him to the fish store, but it was actually Ron Logan who drove there. And the investigation into Ron Logan, after the FBI, the Indiana State Police, and everybody dug into him, looking at every single possibility, they found absolutely nothing tying Ron Logan to the crime. Nothing. Not a damn thing. And why didn't they pin the whole crime on Ron Logan? I mean, he's dead and everything like that. They could have just pinned it on him after all these years. Instead, they set up a lackey that lived in the town named Richard Allen and put a bullet at the crime scene, just preemptively thinking, well, maybe in 5 years, if we can't pin it on anybody else, we can pin it on him. All right. So the thing is you've got Ron Logan, and Ron Logan apparently was in prison and spoke to this an individual that claims that he told him various things. And I think what people need to realize here is that it's double hearsay what we're looking at. So this officer, Hansard, is a polygrapher. So in these documents, the defense brings up an individual named Ricky Davis. And he's in the Department of Corrections, number 114393, at the Newcastle Correctional sometime before May 15, 2017, and that's when Ron Logan was also there. That tip was designated in the Orion tip file dated December 4th, 2023 as Investigative Thread 8578 and appears at pages 76 to 77, I think is what it meant to say, of the PDF. The Exhibit 4A is a redacted version of that tip about Ron Logan's confession to Ricky Davis. All right, so we have that, and then let's go to the actual written document here. So this is double hearsay. The Hansard wrote these notes based on what Ricky Davis told him of what Ricky Davis was apparently told by Ron Logan. Okay, now, I mean, I don't know how weak you can possibly get in being provided information. So let's take a look at what it says in the Journal&Courier. They have the breakdown of what it was actually said. Logan confessed step by step of killing 2 girls. The exhibit filed Monday states Logan told how he burned his clothes in a fire pit and where it was located, used box cutters, and struggled with one of the girls and thought drops of blood from him, or from his nose, ended up on her clothes. Also advised that Logan killed the older girl first. Indiana State Police First Sergeant, I think it's Paul Hansard, interviewed the inmate. The exhibit filed Monday has Hanford's handwritten notes and also has the defense translation of the difficult-to-read notes. Logan walked with the girls and told them he knew one of their dads. When one of the girls wanted to turn around, Logan grabbed the youngest girl, presumably Abby, according to the filing, and grabbed her by the shoulder and told them it's okay. That's when the oldest freaked out, according to the notes, from the prisoner's recollection of Logan's confession. One of the girls said something about calling the police, and Logan was paranoid about probation, according to the exhibit with the filing. He felt as if he crossed a line when he grabbed the youngest one. Logan told the inmate that he told the girls that he knew one of their mothers worked at a bar. He told the girls he had horses and rabbits and offered to let them see them as they walked through the trail in the woods. The oldest, paranoid, didn't want to go, the note states, while the youngest wanted to see horses. Okay, does that make sense to anybody, you guys? That on the bridge, Abby goes, he's got a gun. And he does have a gun. And Richard Allen himself admits to having a gun. on the bridge in his confession. And then in the video, that, the 43-second video, he's got a gun. And then Abby's like, don't leave me up here. And then now you're going to tell me that after that he goes, hey, do you want to see my horses? And then Abby goes, oh, that'd be fun. That'd be neato. That is absolute garbage. That part right there does not match at all what was said or done in the 43-second video. It's not even close. Hansard's notes indicate that the oldest turned to help the youngest and started kicking. Logan told the inmate that he grabbed the oldest and got hit in the nose. He feared he got blood on the girls. He pulled out a box cutter and slit the oldest girl, hitting an artery, according to the filing. The youngest girl was scared, and he took her with him for a while. According to the trooper's notes of the inmate account of Logan's words, he said he cut both in the throat, according to the notes. The inmate told police that Logan left and came back later in the evening after the searchers were looking for the girls. Logan waited until late in the night and moved the oldest girl to an area not likely to be found. Well, was her body really put in a location that it was not likely to be found? No. She was laying on the ground, nude, with a couple branches on her. So that's not true either. Now, the defense likely likes this because it's like, ooh, so Ron Logan's the one who reached underneath Abby's body and plugged in a cell phone and listened to music for 5 hours and then unplugged it. Now, in these documents, they have their own analyst who said that we can't find any possibility that wasn't a person who plugged that phone in. It's just a lie. It's an absolute lie. You can look it up yourself. Apple has themselves put out information that shows that if there's water, it's not water damage, just a little bit of water or something inside the audio jack, it looks like a headphones have been plugged in. Okay, and then when it dries out or the water moves a little bit, it looks like it was been ejected. So it's not true. It's not accurate. I know the defense wants everybody to believe that stuff, but it's just completely bogus. So, and then it says right here, Ron Logan's confession exculpates Mr. Allen. Okay, so it really, I think if anything, it means that if Richard Allen tomorrow came forward and said, you know what, Ron Logan was also there too, and he's part of what happened, I'd go, oh, okay, well, wow, that's crazy. I never thought Ron Logan had anything to do with it. Richard Allen is the bridge guy, everybody. There's no doubt about it. The person in that video is not Ron Logan, looks nothing like him whatsoever, despite what people try to tell you. It doesn't look like him. All right? Richard Allen is bridge guy. Now, if somehow Ron Logan knew more information than any of us realize, and he was there, then you would think that Richard Allen would have brought that up, maybe to get a better deal. But Ron Logan wasn't there, everybody. Okay, there's no proof that Ron Logan was there other than him saying box cutter. And when I was actually on Court TV last night, and you had Barbara McDonald, Bob Motta, and another person that wrote a book, and not one of them mentioned the fact that Richard Allen also mentioned using a box cutter and in fact threw it away in the CVS pharmacy garbage can. Not one of them mentioned that. They all mentioned how the ME brought it up, and then now Ron Logan brought it up, so there's got to be a nexus there. Don't you find that incredible? Why didn't anybody mention that Richard Allen talked about using a box cutter on the girls? It's just absolutely unbelievable. So I think strategically the defense didn't use the information regarding the surveillance camera of the vehicle driving at 2:44 because it doesn't match their timeline. And then Ron Logan doesn't really match either. None of any of their other sort of Odinist theories. It doesn't match their Brad Weber theory. And plus, they weren't allowed to bring up the Ron Logan information, and for good reason. It's double hearsay on information that was deemed not credible by a polygrapher. That's probably the worst piece of evidence I've ever seen. Who cares? It's absolutely irrelevant. The surveillance camera footage is relevant. 244 does change the timeline of the state and the defense, but just changes it in terms of when Richard Allen might have been startled by the van. He still said he saw a van. 244 is right during the commission of the crime as well. It just means that the timing of the steps and everything like that, you have to readjust and say that Richard Allen crossed the creek and then the van drove by. All right, so if I was the prosecution team, what I would do, I would have said it like, now Richard Allen tells the story about how he went down the hill, took the girls down the hill. He was going to assault them down below and then got interrupted and crossed the creek, and then he killed the girls on the other side of the creek. But, we believe that he was interrupted by the van, but it was at a different time. We see the van driving by here at 244, so we believe that Richard Allen took the girls down the hill and he stopped over here, and maybe he considered assaulting them down below, but he thought maybe that was too wide open, and then he took the girls across the creek and had them undress. And during the undressing at 2:32, the phone was put on the ground and it never moved again. A shoe was placed on top of it, and then eventually Abby's body was on top of that later. But we believe that Richard Allen continued to do what he was doing at the crime scene and had them undress, and then perhaps 13 minutes later, after 2:32, the van drove by, and that's when he was scared by the van. Either way, Richard Allen saw the van coming home to Kay Weber's property, driven by Brad Weber, and at that point he was scared, and then he put the branches on top of Abby and Libby, and then he was rushing it, and then he took off. He left Libby on the ground completely nude, and I think there might have been a time where he allowed Abby to redress after the 2:32. He perhaps let Abby redress, or it could even be after the van drove by. He let her redress, and then he had second thoughts, and then he killed her after Libby was already dead over there. He killed her because he couldn't leave another witness, and then sometime later he leaves the crime scene completely. All right? So, there's a lot of stuff going on here. It does change the timeline. If it's 2:44, it changes the timeline, but it doesn't change the fact that Richard Allen saw a van while he was at the crime scene committing the crime during that time frame. And it just means that he was startled at a different time. The Ron Logan information is just absolutely ridiculous, talking about horses and bunnies, and it's double hearsay, and it was actually a polygrapher who deemed Ricky Davis to be absolutely uncredible. And there's many things in those writings that just factually aren't true. Okay, so I hope everybody, when they see these kinds of things, they take them with a grain of salt. Like almost everything you have to do with the defense team, it's all smoke and mirrors. And there's a lot of people out there that try to sell what the defense is selling. And it's a little bit disturbing because it seems like these people are hell-bent on finding a technicality to free a double child killer. Think of that if that was your child. Would you want people doing that? Well, thank you everybody for watching this video. I appreciate it. If you could hit that like button, share, and subscribe, that would be great. And as I always say, everybody, until next time, be safe out there.